sometimes, in cases like yours, they provide a home tutor.
I don't want a home tutor. I mean, no one can keep me out of school. Come on, this is a free country.
David, why don't you discuss this with your parents?
See, your constitutional rights could overrule the school board, but might have to go to court to find out.
Well, look, I'm up for that.
Public Law 94-142 requires a free public education in the least restrictive educational environment.
We simply can't agree that David is being offered the least restrictive environment as required by the federal law.
Okay. David, it's not my decision, but I'm sure the school board will seriously consider your request. But that might mean budget cuts in other areas, and our lowest priorities are in the athletic programs. That includes the swim team.
I don't understand. Why are the state government and the school board putting me through all this hassle?
Hello, I'm Bill Moyers. The story you're about to see is set in a school very much like your own. A few of the main characters may even remind you of your teachers or friends. But the star of this story is an invisible actor you'll not see on screen. No, this is not a ghost story. The actor is history, our American history. The past plays a crucial role in this drama, as it does in our everyday lives. It goes back to a meeting, a summer-long meeting, that took place in this room over 200 years ago. Because of decisions made here, each of us is a citizen of two powers. Our country, the United States of America, and the state we live in, Virginia, Texas, Indiana, California. Both the state and the federal government have certain powers over our lives, which brings us to history, to the men in this room. When the delegates to the Constitutional Convention assembled in this hall in the summer of 1787, the country wasn't really a country at all. It was 13 little countries. Under the Articles of Confederation, our country's first constitution, the 13 states had most of the power, and the central government was very weak. The states printed the money. The states made the laws. The states collected taxes, and the states ran the courts. The men who met in Philadelphia were trying to save the country from falling apart. They decided to write a new constitution that would make the United States government stronger. But how strong? The arguments raged all summer. Some delegates fought hard to defend the rights and power of the states. Others fought just as hard for a strong national government that could unify the country. The result of that hot summer's work in this room was a system of government called federalism. It gave strong powers to the national government, but it put limits on those powers so that the states kept much of their authority. The delegates summarized how that system of government would work in a short document, 4 pages, signed in this room. There is no parchment more important in the history of this republic. Sealed in unbreakable glass, at night it descends into a bomb-proof vault. But its real value lies in what it says. It's our Constitution. Here are the rules by which we govern ourselves. The Constitution lists the powers of national government. It says that in these specific powers, the national government, not the state government, is supreme. In 1787, many Americans felt that the new Constitution gave too much power to the national government and that the rights of individuals in the states would be overwhelmed. They pushed for a Bill of Rights, amendments to the Constitution protecting certain rights of the people and the states against a national government that might try to grab too much power. The 10th Amendment was a concession to the supporters of states' rights. Every power not given to the national government was left to the states. One example, the power to run schools. But this division of powers between the states and the national government was often unclear. It left plenty of room for argument. So from the very beginning, we have power divided and shared between the two levels of government. Now, can questions about this division of power have anything to do with you and me in our daily lives? You bet. Just watch.
First set is 350s freestyle on a 1-minute pace. Good form swim. steady pace. On the top.
Don't take this too hard. I mean, what's a few championship times between friends?
I'm gonna leave you so far behind you'll get a postcard from the finish line.
Ready? Up. Ready? Up. 2. You guys keep pulling times like this, and we'll take that city title just like that.
Come on, Coach. You know we get all embarrassed when you talk that way.
Times would be a lot better, David, if you take that motor out of your mouth and put it in your kick. All right. Full 100 IAF on 2 minutes. First group. Ready? Up.
Somebody's in love.
Yeah. And couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Coach Hender's workout gets any harder. I'm not going to be able to make it up this hill.
Yeah, well, what was with you? You were dogging it today. I can't believe they might cut back on some of the sports program.
I heard they're going to vote on it next month.
Yeah, the school board must be really hurting for money.
Yeah, well, you're lucky you really don't need a scholarship. I mean, if I don't get one after the spring meets, if there are any meets,
I know. Michael, too.
it's going to work out.
Oh, yeah. So, I got the car for tomorrow night. You still going out?
I don't know. I have to ask my boyfriend.
Oh, I see. So what's the big guy say?
I'll be ready at 8.
Gotta go.
David, do you want us here, or would you rather be left alone?
I'll be okay alone.
We'll be right outside.
Okay.
Hello, David.
Hi.
As I've told you and your parents, you've suffered a fair amount of nerve as well as surface damage. Once your surface injuries heal, we'll try exercise, therapy.
But
I know. Walking. We won't know for a while.
you know, the surface part, you said 6 months?
Usually 6 to 9.
Well, at least I can go back to school pretty soon, and then...
Well, David, that's something you and your folks are going to have to take up with the school board.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, your school's never had a student in a wheelchair. There aren't ramps, chair lifts, restrooms for you. And the hill in front of your school would be pretty tough.
Well, I'm pretty tough. I mean, it's not exactly an obstacle course.
The school board might see that differently. Sometimes, in cases like yours, they provide a home tutor.
I don't want a home tutor. I mean, no one can keep me out of school. Come on, this is a free country.
David, why don't you discuss this with your parents? We'll talk more later, okay?
Sure. David? It's as if all my friends are at school. I mean, I know I can't swim, but I at least want to go back.
We know. As soon as the school board makes a decision.
Why does it matter what the school board says? I mean, don't I have constitutional rights? I mean, I am an American.
Dr. J. Hamilton, Dr. J. Hamilton.
David? David.
Listen, you have rights. Federal law says you get an education, wheelchair or not.
But the state has some say in how they provide it, and then the local school board makes some of the decision for the state.
So that means I have to have a tutor?
We don't think so. See, your constitutional rights could overrule the school board, but might have to go to court to find out.
Well, look, I'm up for that.
Well, if it comes to that, we are going to be right there with you.
Okay.
Don't I have rights under the Constitution, David asks. Sure, he has lots of rights, both as a citizen of his state and as a citizen of the United States. So do you. But remember, the Constitution left unclear the division of power between the federal and state governments. Does the national government in Washington have the right to tell a state how to treat a handicapped person like David? Just how is power shared between the federal and state governments? This division of power has changed a lot since our Liberty Bell last rang out over Independence Square. The Constitution succeeded in setting up an effective national government. From humble beginnings, our central government grew in size and power. Meanwhile, the power of the states steadily declined. The legal system, the judiciary, became part of this process. The Constitution set up a Supreme Court. When there is a dispute between the states and the federal government about states' rights, these issues can be brought before this court. John Marshall was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court from 1801 to 1835. In his time, the court made important decisions in favor of national government and against states' rights. But many people were upset by this growth of federal power, particularly the plantation owners in the South. As the country grew, adding more and more states, Southerners worried that they were becoming outnumbered, that federal laws would be passed to take away their states' rights, such as state laws protecting slavery. Secession, the year 1861. 11 Southern states take the fateful step. They leave the federal union with its constitution and form a new country, the Confederate States of America. Abraham Lincoln, backed by Congress, did not want the country to be split up, but the argument over the division of power between the national and state governments had become a deep wound across the nation. The old words, the old laws, could no longer settle the debate. In 1861, it became a bloody battle of swords and guns. It was a terrible war. Whole towns and cities were left in ruins. More than 500,000 people on both sides died. The North won. The South lost. The United States Constitution won, and with it, a tilt to strong federal power. From now on, there would be no more serious talk about a state or group of states overriding federal law or seceding from the Union. We were going to be a United States. With the end of the Civil War, the passage of 3 new amendments to the Constitution. The 13th Amendment, ending slavery. The 14th Amendment, no state could deprive any citizen of certain rights and liberties. The 15th, protecting the voting rights of black men. Equal protection of the laws. These were big changes in the Constitution. The national government now claimed what before the war had been exclusively a sovereign right of the states. The end of the Civil War meant a boom for most of the country. It was the age of big business and industrial power, the age of invention, the age of the rapid expansion of power for the national government. And a century of inventions, the railroad, the telegraph, and later the telephone. Americans could now communicate with each other at the speed of lightning. For our great-grandparents, it was as awesome as going to the moon. Large factories could now produce everything from razor blades and soap to cameras and the motor car. We suddenly had a lot to sell and a whole new expanding territory in which to sell it. We crossed state lines to get our raw materials. We crossed the country to sell our goods. More and more, it was the national government involved in the economic life of these United States. The Great Depression of the 1930s, an era when the economy of the country just seemed to collapse. Over 13 million Americans out of work. Local communities and state governments did what they could, but this was a national crisis. Americans turned to the only institution big enough with enough clout to act across state lines, our national government.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. This vision is asking for action, and action now.
An explosion of federal government activity into every aspect of the country's life. Government agencies to provide jobs, to support the banks, to help businesses, to give aid for the needy. A problem of national significance requires a government of national scope. Alexander Hamilton said that over 200 years ago. It's the kind of national government we have today, one of vast scope and power. But local government has power too. This is what David in our story is beginning to discover.
Hey, better, hey, better, swing.
All right, that's big time.
You're out of there, you're out of there.
Hey, you've had that tutor all month. When are they letting you back in school?
I don't know. I mean, the principal and the superintendent keep meeting with the school board, and meanwhile, I'm stuck at home.
And they haven't told you a thing?
Nothing. See, well, they're talking money. See, the feds give the states only part of the money to take care of guys like me, and then, well, what happens is the state has to pick up the rest. And, well, if they're already short, they do the least the law requires.
So people in the middle like you lose out.
Right.
See, that doesn't seem fair to me. I mean, the least the law requires, what does that mean?
Got me. I haven't even seen the law.
You haven't?
Wait a second. Wait, maybe that's what we need to do. I mean, find out exactly what the law says.
Yeah. So let's hit the library.
Okay. Hey, race you to the street. Wait, I think I got it. Listen to this. This is Public Law 94-142. Okay, no otherwise qualified handicapped individual shall be excluded from the participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance.
Wait, what about the part the librarian said to read about the least restrictive environment?
Oh, wait, here it is. Public Law 94-142 requires a free public education in the least restrictive educational environment.
Hey, that can't exactly mean my back porch.
I don't think so.
Hey, listen, I think we got it made.
We're trying to get you back in school, David, but our funding barely meets the needs of the students that we have now. And least restrictive environment doesn't necessarily mean a regular classroom.
All right, well, what about the schools in Fairview? I mean, they're just past the state line, but they got a wheelchair basketball team.
That's great, David, really. But each state can apply the federal laws a bit differently. You studied the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Certain powers are reserved to the states.
What about another part of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment?
The one that guarantees every citizen equal protection under the law.
We've never had a student in a wheelchair before.
Look, Dr. Stanion, first you insisted upon a home tutor when he'd be better off back in school.
And then you said I could bus to a school that can handle wheelchairs. I mean, but why should I have to ride for 50 miles?
We know you're trying your best. We simply can't agree that David is being offered the least restrictive environment as required by the federal law.
Okay. David, it's not my decision. But I'm sure the school board will seriously consider your request. But that might mean budget cuts in other areas, and our lowest priorities are in the athletic programs. That includes the swim team.
Hey, wait a minute. You mean you may have to can the whole program just because of me?
Hold on, Dr. Stanion. It is not David's fault. The school can't fund their own programs.
No, it's not his fault. But it just may be a reality.
You know, the team's funding's been up in the air for some time, along with some other sports. Well, a new priority is being considered. We'll have to suspend practice until the school is sure they can still afford us.
What? What new priority? What's more important than us?
Wheelchairs.
As David and his friends are beginning to realize, federalism, this division and sharing of powers between the states and the central government, isn't something only politicians talk about in faraway capitals. It affects everyone. It touches almost every aspect of our daily lives. And this sharing of powers has not remained the same over the years. In fact, since I was a boy, the national government has gained a larger and larger say in another concern that's countrywide, the civil rights of all of us. Speeches, protests, demonstrations, the civil rights movement spreads across the South and later on to all parts of the country. Before this time, many state leaders insisted that segregation was a local matter. But the 14th Amendment, passed right after the Civil War, had long ago given all Americans equal protection of the laws. 1954, the Supreme Court, under Chief Justice Earl Warren, rules that state laws requiring racial segregation in schools violated the Constitution. 1957, confrontation. The governor of Arkansas, Orville Faubus, claims that it was his state's right to have segregated public schools.
I will not force my people to integrate against their will. I believe in the democratic processes and principles of government wherein the people determine the problems on the local level, which is their right.
President Eisenhower orders in federal troops and forces the integration of Arkansas's public schools. In 1964 and 1965, new federal laws passed to protect the civil rights of black Americans. And President Lyndon Johnson promises to enforce these laws vigorously. This leads to more and more national government influence in the affairs of state and local governments. The people who created our national government here 200 years ago would be amazed at the growth in federal power. Up until now, that enormous increase in national government has been a one-way street. It's been driven, as we've seen, by war, by the growth and the collapse of the national economy, by all those Supreme Court decisions, and most recently by the popular demand for civil rights for everyone. Shared authority. It's worked, this Constitution based on federalism. David's national government has laws that give handicapped people many rights. His local authorities have a say in how those laws will be carried out. With two levels of government operating in the same area, the tension is always with us, built into the system. Out of this continuing argument, the debate of democracy goes on. It's never over. David, in our story, you and me, we, the people of the United States, all of us have a stake in it.
Exactly asked to be in a wheelchair.
Well, of course not. But we already missed the city meet.
So what do you expect me to do?
You know, Michael and I just have to get scholarships.
Oh, so I'm supposed to not go back to school?
I don't know. Look, I have to go. I have to think.
Yeah, sure. And take all the time you need. Hi, guys.
Hi.
just wondering if you've had time to think.
You know, we feel really bad about your accident, David. But if you could just hang tough for one more season.
What about my season? Sitting home staring at the wall? Look, you know I want you guys to get scholarships. But for now, I need you to be my friends. However the school board votes.
I don't know how I'll feel if we lose the program. I just wish there was a way it could work out for all of us.
I mean, you're my best friend, okay, Dave, but it just does not seem fair.
I know. I don't understand. I mean, if the federal law says I get to go to school in the least restrictive environment, why are the state government and the school board putting me through all this hassle? How come they have anything to say about it?
Has been developed by state education agencies in association with AIT. This program